How are things? Happy May. So I'm working on a review of an old Japanese film called Sansho the Bailiff, but it's a pretty good movie, and I'm taking a while to sort of digest my thoughts on it, and I really want to take my time. So I'm going to talk about something completely unrelated. Do you ever think about how insane it is that everyone perceives every event differently? We know that people have their own interpretation of events and understands the meaning of things differently, but that's something else. That makes sense. But to think that two people can look at something or hear a sentence and not even receive the same input into their brains is both fascinating, but kind of terrifying, you know? Now, obviously, this isn't to say that everyone sees something completely different. It could be broken down into, 70% of people see stuff that is closely similar or what we would call accurate, right? 20% may see something that's slightly different, and 10% may see something that we would consider completely insane. Those numbers are pretty much made up, but you get the point, right? But assuming that this exists at all, imagine the effect that this phenomenon would have on the world and society as a whole, right? So, I started to think about it, right? The main reason that I started to think about this is because, for almost 20 years now, I've been debating unimportant things like anime, sports, games, stuff like that. And it's happened to me a lot where people have said something like, "So you're saying," and then they'll invent something that I didn't say. And it wasn't out of malice either. They genuinely thought that I said that, or they perceived that I said that. And sometimes I don't think people are in the correct state of mind that properly allows them to process information both correctly and accurately, right? But that's just anime conversations, so it doesn't really matter. I think there are vastly more important topics that this applies to, right? When you think about something like this, how does this sliding scale of interpretive distortion affect our society when we're considering things that actually matter in real life? How can we create peace treaties when I can point to a red ball and you don't see a red ball? You know, Perhaps this is where central planning, social contracts, and peer pressure come in to bridge the gap and sort of hold society together where we don't see things the same way and where we disagree. Ultimately, I'd have to chalk things up like this to people being highly emotional in nature, biased, or, there are people who experience some sort of perception altering condition, whether it's due to their mental health or something like that, or whether they're going through things in their life. Who knows? In the end, however, I'm honestly not sure whether or not something like this is useful or beneficial in your search for truth, but who am I after all? I'm trying to consult sources that are a lot more authoritative on the topic. I've been reading The World of Perception by Maurice Merleau-Ponty. He talks a lot about how, our perception is something that we can use that is valuable. It helps us in our discovery of science and advanced topics, but it isn't useful, just by itself, or it's not an all seeing eye. This is a really hard topic. I don't know what to think right now.